The brown leather duffel sat half-buried in the snow on the bench at the Haverson Road bus stop for 1 hour and 40 minutes before anyone touched it. Mara Tilden, the overnight clerk inside the warming hut, saw it on the security feed at 3:34 in the morning and decided it could wait until the sun came up. She had been on the night shift for 9 years. She had stopped believing that a bag on a bench was ever a happy thing. The man who finally reached for it came in on the 5:14 from the south end of the county line. Mara recognized him by the coat, navy work jacket, too thin for the cold, the kind that comes from a hardware store and not a sporting outfitter. A tin lunch box clipped at his belt. A child's crayon drawing taped to the inside of the lid, visible whenever he lifted it. A snow fort with a flag, crooked letters underneath that spelled out TESS. His name, she would learn later, was Wyatt Booker. He was 46. He had been an overnight janitor at the Beacon Mercy Regional Building for 2 years and a part-time roadside plow contractor before that. He was a widower. He had a 7-year-old daughter who slept on a cot in the back room of his trailer near the rail yard. Mara did not know any of this yet. She only knew that he sat down on the bench, that he saw the duffel, and that for 30 full seconds he did not move. Then he unzipped it. She watched on the feed as he opened the bag and reached inside. He pulled out one banded stack of bills. He laid it flat across his knee. He pulled out a second. He counted them slowly with his lips moving. He set them back. He took the bag in both hands and tipped it slightly so the light caught what was inside. Mara could not see it clearly on the feed, but she would learn that there were 42 bands. $42,000 even, all in hundreds, with one cream-colored business card tucked into the side pocket. He held the card up to the street lamp. The card said Calvin Royce, President, Beacon Mercy Health Foundation. Mara saw him close his eyes for a moment. She thought he was going to put the bag down and walk away. She thought he was going to leave it and let someone else carry the weight of $42,000 at 5 in the morning. Instead, he zipped the duffel back up, tucked it under the front of his coat, walked into the warming hut, and asked her if the 6 and 10 still ran to the Beacon Mercy Tower. She told him it did not. The county had cut that route 8 months ago. He nodded once. He thanked her. He asked for the time. He asked her, polite as a man asking for the weather, how far it was to the tower on foot. It was 11 miles. She watched him walk out of the hut and start down County Line Road into the dark. The witness narration carries her through what she did next. Mara Tilden called her supervisor and told him she would be late opening up because she needed to drive south for half an hour. She got into her old hatchback. She caught up to Wyatt at the second bend, 2 miles in, and she rolled down her window and asked him to please get inside the car. He thanked her. He said he could not. He said the bag did not belong to him, and he had not earned a ride for himself by carrying it. He said it was important that he did this on his own feet. She sat in her car at the side of the road and watched him walk away from her into the snow. She drove back to the hut. She did not stop thinking about him for the rest of her shift. By 6 in the morning, the storm had thickened. Wyatt Booker walked the shoulder of the county road in the gray half-light, the duffel pressed against his ribs under his coat to keep the bills dry. He stopped once at the 4-mile mark when a battered pickup truck spun off into the drift. A young man in his 20s stood beside it, swearing softly, his hands red and bare. Wyatt put his shoulder against the bumper and pushed while the young man worked the wheel. The pickup rocked free. The young man asked him what he was doing out there on foot. Wyatt said he had business in town. The young man offered him a ride. Wyatt thanked him and said no. Before the young man pulled away, Wyatt handed him his last $20 bill, folded once. He told him to put it in the tank and keep moving. He said he had learned a thing about cold once in a colder country than this one. The young man did not understand what he meant. He drove on. Wyatt walked. He reached a roadside payphone at the 7-mile mark and called his sister-in-law, Della. He asked her to take Tess in for the morning and keep her warm and tell her he would be home by lunch. He did not tell Della about the bag. He said only that he was helping someone get something back that belonged to them. He walked the last 4 miles into the wind. The Beacon Mercy Regional Tower stood on a low hill at the edge of the town, 8 stories of dark glass over a wide marble lobby. Wyatt arrived at the front doors at 9:41 in the morning with ice in his beard and his boots soaked through to the wool. The duffel was still dry against his ribs. The lobby guard, a man named Rennie Castillo, took one look at him through the glass and did not move to unlock the inner doors. Wyatt held up the card and let him read the name on it. He held up the bag. Rennie's hand went to his radio. The narration steps closer now. It rides Rennie. Rennie had worked the desk for 15 years. He had been told 1,000 times to be careful of the men who appeared in lobbies with bags. He pressed the button for the executive floor and said into the radio that there was a gentleman in the lobby with a duffel that he believed belonged to Mr. Royce. There was a long pause. Then there was the sound of a man's footsteps on the marble that Rennie knew from years of hearing them. Calvin Royce was coming down the central staircase before the elevator could even rise. Royce was 53. He wore a charcoal suit and a wedding ring on a chain around his neck that he had stopped wearing on his finger 4 years earlier when his wife had died. He had spent the last 6 hours not sleeping because the duffel was the foundation's quarterly board petty cash withdrawal, and he had set it down on the bench at 1:50 in the morning to retie his shoe and walked off without it like an idiot. He had told no one. He had been about to call the city police. He came down the stairs expecting a negotiation. He had a finder's fee already worked out in his head, 10%, maybe 15%. What he saw instead was a man whose beard was iced over and whose boots had left a slow trail of water across the marble. The man set the duffel on the front desk. He stepped back from it. He did not put his hand on it. He looked Calvin Royce in the face and said quietly, 42,000 even, sir. I counted twice on the bench and once at the 7-mile mark to make sure the wind hadn't pulled any out of the side pocket. It's all there. The card, too. Royce stood very still. Rennie, watching from the desk, saw the foundation president's face do something he had never seen it do in 15 years. It softened. The man behind the eyes looked at the man in front of the duffel as though seeing him for the first time. Royce reached out and unzipped the bag. He counted the bands quickly with the side of his thumb. He zipped it back up. He turned to the desk and asked Rennie for a cup of hot coffee, 2 sugars, fast. He turned back to Wyatt. What's your name, sir? Wyatt told him. What do you do for work? Wyatt told him about the janitor shift at the regional building and about the snowplow contract in the winter. He did not embellish. He did not list anything he had ever done before that. Royce nodded once. He let a moment pass. Then he asked the question that he had not meant to ask and that he would later say changed the rest of his life. Mr. Booker, do you have a family? Wyatt said, a daughter, she's 7. Royce was quiet for a long moment. The witness narration sees what he does not say. 6 months earlier, Royce's foundation had reviewed a stack of out-of-network assistance applications and had signed denials on 23 of them in a single afternoon. He had not read the names. He had been told the budget was tight and that the cap had been set by the board chair, and he had signed where the assistant pointed. One of the files he had signed had been a 7-year-old girl with a rare blood disorder whose father worked nights at the very tower in which they were now standing. He did not know yet that the girl was Wyatt's daughter. He only had a feeling. He asked, what's her name? Wyatt said Tessa Marin Booker. The witness narration sees the foundation president set both hands on the front desk to steady himself. He said very quietly, Mr. Booker, I would like you to please use our lobby restroom to dry your feet and warm your hands, and I would like you to please take this cup of coffee, and I would like you to please give me 1 hour while I look at a file. Wyatt did as he was asked. He did not understand any of it. He sat on a marble bench in the lobby for 1 hour and 12 minutes. He drank the coffee. He wrung his socks. He did not call Della. He did not ask Rennie what was happening. He waited the way a man waits who has spent 20 years learning that the right thing is rarely the fast thing. When Calvin Royce came back down the staircase, he was carrying a thin file folder and his coat. The witness narration follows them out to the curb. A foundation car pulled up. Royce asked Wyatt for the address of his trailer. Wyatt gave it. Royce wrote it on the cover of the folder. He asked Wyatt to please go home and warm up and tell his daughter that an old friend of the foundation would be by to see them at 11 o'clock that night after the building had cleared, and to please not be alarmed by the hour. Wyatt did not press him. He nodded once. He let the car drive him home. Tess was on the couch when he came through the door at noon. Della had made her oatmeal. Wyatt knelt down beside the couch and brushed the hair off her forehead and said that the day had gone fine. He did not tell her about the duffel. He did not tell her about the foundation president. He told her that a man might come to visit them late tonight, and that the man was a friend, and there was nothing to be afraid of. She believed him because she always believed him. At 11 o'clock that night, a black sedan pulled onto the gravel by the trailer. Calvin Royce stepped out alone. He was no longer in the charcoal suit. He wore a long wool coat and old leather boots, and he carried a thin folder under one arm. The witness narration steps into him now. He had not known what to expect of the trailer. He had grown up middle class in a town in the eastern part of the state, and his picture of poverty had always been a picture from a movie, and the trailer was not that. It was small. It was clean. There were 2 pairs of small girls' snow boots lined up by the door. There was a kitchen table with a folded paper napkin at each of the 3 places where someone might sit. There was a child's drawing on the wall above the table, a snow fort with a flag, the crooked letters underneath that spelled TESS. Royce stood at the door for a long moment before he knocked. Wyatt opened the door in the same socks. He let Royce in. He poured him coffee from a thermos. They sat across from one another at the kitchen table. Tess slept in the back room. The narration, through Royce now, hears the man across the table not ask a single question, and feels the weight of his composure like a third presence in the room. Royce opened the folder. He laid it flat. He said simply that the foundation had received an application 6 months earlier for an out-of-network pediatric blood disorder procedure for a 7-year-old patient. He said the application had been denied because the cap had been set tight by a vote he had not contested. He said he had signed the denial in a stack of 23 on a Tuesday afternoon without reading the name. He said the procedure was scheduled for the 2nd Wednesday of next month at the Regional Children's Hospital, and that the foundation was, beginning that night, absorbing the gap. He said the surgeon, a woman named Dr. Imani Yates, would be in the lobby at 6 in the morning to introduce herself and walk through the pre-op timeline. He did not say it as charity. He said it as a correction. Wyatt did not speak for a long time. He nodded once. He set both hands flat on the table the way a man does when he has not allowed himself to lean on anything for 6 years. He said, "Thank you, sir." He said it once. He did not say it again. Royce asked, almost shyly, if he might use the couch. He said he did not want to drive back into the storm, and he did not want to take the trailer's only bed. Wyatt said the couch was his to use. Royce slept in his coat. The witness narration closes on the night with the 2 men in the small room, and the child asleep behind the door, and the duffel of $42,000 sitting back in a foundation vault 11 miles away where it belonged. In the morning, Tess woke to 2 strange boots by the door and a man with kind, tired eyes sitting at the kitchen table eating oatmeal her father had cooked. She climbed up beside him without being told to and asked him who he was. He told her his name was Calvin. He told her he had a son named Henry who was 11. He said Henry liked snow forts. Tess showed him the drawing on the wall. The witness narration steps back and lets them have the moment without naming it. Years later, Mara Tilden, the overnight clerk from the warming hut, would tell the story to her grandchildren. She would tell them about the man who had sat on the bench at 5:14 in the morning and counted the bands twice. She would tell them about the 11-mile walk in the storm. She would tell them about the foundation president who had come to the trailer at midnight. She would tell them that the good of a man is not what he does when the room is watching. It is what he does when only the snow is. She would not tell them every detail of what came after. She would tell them only that on the morning after the storm, 2 widowed fathers had folded quietly into one another's lives over a pot of oatmeal and a child's drawing of a snow fort, and that the family the world had nearly forgot to make whole had been made whole by the steady, patient, almost invisible decency of a man who had walked 11 miles in the cold because the card in the bag had a name on it that was not his own. That, she would say, was the kind of man worth telling a story about. That was the kind of man worth waiting up to see.